Thanks everybody for being here. Really excited to be talking with all of you about some of the headway that we've been making, working on authoring experience tools and specifically Mercury editor. I'm going to stop video and go to screen share. All right, hopefully you guys can see my screen okay. Maybe somebody throw in the chat that they can see that okay would be great.
Yeah, we can see it.
Awesome. Okay, great. So we'll get this started. So yeah, we're talking today about Mercury, something I'm really excited about, something I spend a lot of time talking about and working on both with my team here at Atten and with our clients. Mercury provides effortless drag and drop publishing for Drupal. It's built on top of a collection of open source modules and tools. Something that we'll talk some about today, and a big development in Mercury is that it is now available as a Drupal module. Something we've been working on for a little while is just trying to figure out the right way to release Mercury, in that so much of what we'll be seeing today in the past has been based on really customized functionality on a per site basis. And that's something that I think we've kind of turned the corner on and now have something that, again, we've released on Drupal.org, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we work through this. So let's jump in. Today, what we're going to cover specifically is first just what Mercury Editor is. If anyone here hasn't seen any of the videos or any of these demos in the past, that'll be really useful just to know exactly what Mercury is and what it provides. Second, we're going to be talking about the Mercury editor ecosystem, meaning the module itself, the modules involved in Mercury, as well as the collection of submodules that comes with the module available now on Drupal.org. We're, of course, going to do a demo. I'm going to do a two-part demo. I'm going to talk about, or I'm going to show Mercury on our website, as I've done in the past. Then I'm also going to show what Mercury looks like as a fresh install on a brand new Drupal 9 prototype. So we'll take a look at that also. Kind of at the tail end of that demo, we're going to talk through the different submodules that are in the Mercury module on Drupal.org. We'll talk a little bit about what's next, kind of what we have in our sites for the remainder of the year. And then should have plenty of time for questions as well. All right. So Mercury Editor provides, first and foremost, no-code drag and drop editing for specifically geared toward the needs of editorial staff and marketing staff. Mercury is built on top of layout paragraphs, which in turn is built on top of paragraphs, both widely used modules. I mean, paragraphs in particular has, I think, over 200,000 websites using that module, so extremely widely adapted, heavily used. Layout paragraphs, the adoption for that is continuing to grow. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into this, but layout paragraphs just provides this really easy to use drag and drop editing on top of paragraphs. And again, Mercury is largely built on top of that. Mercury provides a custom component library. Now, for all intensive purposes, when we talk about components, we're really talking about paragraph types. So if you're familiar with Drupal and specifically familiar with the paragraph module in Drupal, when you hear component in the context of Mercury and what we're going to be talking about today, you can think paragraph types. But one key element of Mercury Editor is the way it makes use of a custom component library by way of paragraph types. Mercury makes use of style options. Style options is a really simple, lightweight, developer-focused module available on Drupal.org that provides a centralized, easy to use from a developer perspective experience for creating and managing styles across the site. Mercury provides an enhanced UI for working with a site, as we'll get into. And finally, Mercury provides inline text editing built on top of CK Editor 4 and 5. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we progress through here. I want to touch just briefly on the Mercury Editor ecosystem. modules and submodules. Again, as I was saying earlier, Mercury is now available as a module on Drupal.org. You can download the code and experiment with this yourself. Mercury makes heavy use of layout paragraphs, as we'll see here in a bit. Also available, of course, on Drupal.org. Layout paragraphs, in turn, is built on top of Layout API in Drupal core. Mercury makes use of style options available as a Drupal module. Provides inline editing with CK Editor 4 and 5. And something else we'll get into at the end of this presentation is the submodules that come with Mercury Editor. And we'll kind of talk through what each of those provide here at the end. This is just a quick look at adoption for layout paragraphs. Again, I throw this up here because layout paragraphs continues to grow. Usage of this module continues to grow. This is something that we continue to invest in and use for our clients for the vast majority of projects that we're pushing. And Mercury, again, is really closely tied to layout paragraphs. So the adoption of layout paragraphs seems really relevant for when we talk about Mercury. Okay, great. That's a really quick overview of what Mercury is. I'm going to jump in and with a live demo. We'll just go over to, again, first our website, and then we'll show a kind of a fresh install of Drupal 9 so everybody gets a sense for what this looks like there. So this is our website. This is a test instance of the atten.io website. If I go to the user login page and log in, this is using the Gin admin theme, which already provides a lot of really great customizations and improvements to the authoring experience, as well as the Gin toolbar across the top. Something that you'll notice right off the bat is this edit button. This edit drop button replaces the Drupal tabs. This is provided directly by way of a block provided by Mercury Editor, the Mercury Editor module. From this page, from the home page, which is of the content type landing page, I'll just hit edit. And we immediately see some of the features of Mercury. So Mercury makes use of this edit tray that slides out from the right, where it loads the edit form for the content that we're looking at. And then, and most importantly, Mercury then turns on all of the layout paragraphs editing. So right here from the front end, we immediately have access to all of the edit tools for, again, editing this content in a really visual way. Something that I talked about a little earlier was the inline text editing capacity. And just to kind of show how that works really quickly, all I've done is just clicked on this text and I'm immediately editing the text in the front end here. So if I wanted to just do some light editing, doesn't necessarily have to be light, but if I want to go in and edit some of this text, I can do so. This is making API calls on the back end that is updating this text for this page dynamically as we go. So that's been edited or that has been updated. I can hit save. It saves, refreshes the page. To close out of the editor, we simply hit close, wait for this to load, and now we're looking at the page as we have just made, again, these really simple text edits. That's a quick look at how this works on this landing page piece of content. I'll go into a little bit more depth here and show what this is like creating new content. And for anyone who's seen this demo in the past, seen versions of this demo in the past, this is going to be really similar, but again, show some of the new features available in Mercury specifically. And specifically, perhaps most specifically, showing some of the features in this edit tray functionality. Something that's a little hard to discern right off the bat is that this page has already been sort of taken over by Mercury Editor. When we click on the link to create content for a type of content that we said Mercury should be in charge of, the URL is a little bit different. We'll notice here it goes to a Mercury Editor node add page. As it loads the page, it actually loads the front end view of a new piece of content with the edit tray loaded. So this is the edit form for this piece of content. We can name our piece of content and then immediately start working in the layout paragraphs interface. So on this particular template, this particular piece of content, layout paragraphs is responsible for rendering everything on the page, which is why we're seeing this big content area, the big kind of white content area with the plus button. We hit plus, choose a section. And again, if you've seen these demos before, this is going to look really familiar. Something that has changed and is a very significant change in the most recent version of Mercury. All of these forms load in iframes, which means they're loading the back-end styles for a site. And it means as soon as you install Mercury on a website, it inherits all the styles from the back end. And there are also configuration pages for setting what theme the iframe should use. We'll just get started adding some content here. I'll grab some content from off screen. Look into images, which integrates with the media library. Click load more, find a couple images I want to use for this example. Hit place. Again, this is loading, all this content is rendering with the Claro admin theme. So the new default theme for Drupal 9, the new default admin theme for Drupal 9. I have rearranged my images, added my images, hit save, and it immediately drops them into the page. Just like before, just like what has been available previously, we go into edit, we can click on the styles tab, choose light on dark for the color scheme, pick a background color for our section, hit save, and again, we see that immediately take effect. The tray, the edit tray showing all of the other fields associated with this content stays open the entire time. If at any point I want to save and review my work or see the work in the front end, I can certainly do so. I'm going to add a couple more sections first. Do a 2-column section. And grab some text here. This is using that inline text editing functionality. So we can immediately drop the text into the front end. Here in a couple minutes, I'll talk a little bit more about how that's working and how you can make use of that, again, just by downloading the Mercury editor module. So I've added my text. I can go in and using styles provided by style options, click edit, change the background color for my text. Also choose this padded style. These styles are all custom to the needs of our site specifically, and both can be and would need to be customized to the unique needs of any unique website. So it's not like those styles, it's not like there's a library of styles built into Mercury. Rather, there is the capacity to very simply add one's own styles for the needs of their website. Keep going through here, add another section. Again, this time we'll do a 1-column. Grab some text. Again, just to kind of show how style options can work, we have a style that is specific to unordered lists. I'll grab this horizontal list style. It immediately adds this horizontal setup to my unordered list. I'm going to choose a background color for this. And now that's looking pretty good. Just as we've shown before when demoing Mercury, all of the drag and drop controls work the same. You can bump this content up or back down. If I want to create another block very similar to this one, an easy way to do that is hit the clone button, grab, again, some text. Change the background color for this. And you can get a sense for how it's working. I'll just add one more component here, and then we'll move on to show some of the other features of Mercury. Do another section, this time do a 3-column. Once again, grab some text. And throw in a slideshow here. Again, integrating with media library, quickly search for the images we need without the typo. There we go. Just grab a few here and throw these in. You can see how that's working. It's looking pretty good. It would look even better again if it was this light on dark with the background color applied. So we'll do that. Actually, I said I'd do just one more, but I'll do one more for real. Do a section again. This time we'll go with a 2-column. Choose another background color, light on dark. This time I'm going to grab an image. Not that image. Grab mountains background, hit save. We can see that now has our background color as well as that background image applied. Again, I'll add some text in the left-hand column. With that inline text editing, so we don't have to go, we can go back in to the component edit dialog, but we don't have to do that. We can edit the text directly in the front end. Add an image one more time. All right, now I'm going to go into my image and choose a special style that we have that'll change the cropping of that. Again, these styles can be determined in a centralized location in a way that controls styles across the entire site, and then also easily tailored to the needs of each different type of component. So in this case, this option only applies to images. Choose this media full, which again is specific to our site and just changes the way that image is cropped. Okay, that's a quick overview of how this is working. The major changes in this version of Mercury are mostly related to this edit tray, the fact that the edit experience is now really unified. So when you land on a piece of content, rather than having a separate place to edit some fields, and then the front end for editing, well, the front end for editing layout paragraphs, all of that is unified into the single edit button. We click edit. That loads the form for all of the fields associated with this piece of content on the right. This tray that can be resized. If we have a more complicated form and need the real estate, we can drag that as large as we want. We can also scroll to the bottom of this form, and there's an option to open the form in a new tab, which just takes us to the back-end editing for this piece of content. So to an interface that we're much more, perhaps everyone is much more familiar with. And I think this will continue to be useful for pieces of content that might have more complex administrative fields. It's also worth pointing out, again, at a slightly more technical level, this is using a custom form mode. So the form that appears for the Mercury tray can be managed completely separately than the form that appears for the main edit tab of a piece of content. And if you wanted to have a much simpler form for what shows up on the tray, you can certainly do that. So we've saved our piece of content. I'll hit close. Now we see again a representation of exactly what that's going to look like. I mean, we're literally looking at the view tab for this piece of content. It's worth taking a look at some of these options that are tucked away inside this drop button now. If we go to revisions, revision history also opens in the Mercury editor tray. And we will be continuing to work on the options within this drop button and bringing whichever of those kind of make the most sense into the simplified tray experience. So again, we're maintaining the context of what we're looking at while opening edit tools off to the right or admin tools off to the right. We use Mercury and layout paragraphs pretty extensively on our site. If I were to kind of click around the site and look at various sections, and actually I think I'll just go back to the home page, although this one works as an example as well. On any page that's using Mercury, we will have this edit button instead of tabs. Click edit. Again, same functionality. Loads the editor experience for all of the content on this page. Anything that's using the text WYSIWYG editor installed through Drupal will get this front-end text editing capability, so we can start editing this text right away here in the front end, and start adding components to the page as well. The list of components can be managed, and has to be managed really separately from one content type to the next. So an easy example of that for us with landing pages, there are a lot more options than there are with case studies. So there are a lot more components included in landing pages than there were in case studies. And those, again, those components can be managed on a per content type basis. These are all simply paragraph types, with a couple exceptions that I might try to get into a little bit later when we get into looking more closely at style options. Style options provides, but these are by and large all separate paragraph types, and those are managed the way paragraph types always are, meaning if you create a paragraph field associated with a content type, you specify at that time which paragraph types should be available to that content type. So in this case, landing pages can reference all of these. There is also a layout paragraphs restrictions module that we just recently pushed a dev repository to on Drupal.org that provides an API for further defining restrictions. So you might say which of these items goes inside of or can go inside of one layout versus another layout. Or if you wanted to, and this is often how we approach this, you could manage what shows up in this interface in one central location using that module. And I'm happy to, it's a little technical, I'm happy to talk through more of that if anybody's interested as we get into Q&A. I think that's everything I have to show for how this works on our website. There's plenty more we could dig into, but I'm going to actually move over to a new fresh install and show how this works or what this would look like right out of the box. This is a demo site. It's running Drupal 9 with the Mercury suite of modules installed, as well as the Gin admin theme and the Gin toolbar. And I think that's about it. I don't think anything else has been added to the site. So really simple, and should be a good example of what Mercury provides right out of the box. We'll go to the content screen. There's no content yet. Click add content. We have two content types here. There's article. Take a look at article really quick. This is just using, Mercury's not touching this. So it's, you can define, there are settings for defining what content types use Mercury and which content types do not. So an article in this case, not using Mercury, you create content the same way that everyone is already used to, who is used to working with Drupal. Basic page, however, we have designated as a Mercury editor content type. We click over to basic page. Once again, we see the front end loaded immediately. The title of the page is on the screen. In this case, layout paragraphs is really only taking over this content area and not the title, not the rest of the page, unlike what we were looking at on the atten.io website. There's some really simple element syncing here or field syncing. So if I start to type a name for my new page, it automatically updates right here in front of us. We can then click add a component, choose a component again, just like what we were looking at on our site. You'll notice that the styles here are almost identical to the styles that we were looking at on our website. And most of that is coming now from the Mercury module itself. And what's driving that is the fact that this content is loading in an iframe, and the fact that the dialogue itself is using a new custom Mercury dialogue element that is a web component that ships with its own styles as well. So it means everything essentially looks good right out of the box. And that was a big challenge in the past, is that a big challenge was customizing Mercury to the needs of each individual site and having to style all of these components in a way that blended with the existing styles of an existing or unique site. And there ended up inevitably being a lot of conflict in trying to make that happen, a lot of conflicts between the styles. And using an iframe for this, using this custom web component has really gotten around that and helped make this consistent right out of the box. I'm going to add a 2-column section. I don't think I have any styles defined here. Hit save. Again, we'll add some text. One thing we're working on is integrating the inline text editing with the newest version of CK Editor 5. So since that's not quite working yet, we would just add the text here. Add an image component. Again, integrating with the media module, media library. Grab one of these, hit insert, save, and there we have the image. I'll do the same thing over here. You can add some more text. Oops, I'm in the source. Great, and hopefully everybody's getting a sense for how this would work. You can really see how quickly it can work to get this installed and get this running on an individual site. Because of the fact that content is now the content for layout paragraphs, content for all of these edit forms, content within the dialogues, because all of that is loading in an iframe and allows us to target styles in a really specific way, allows us to pull in the style sheets just for the edit form. It means that we can install this on virtually any site with far less customization necessary to get it really working, get it thoroughly integrated into the look and feel of a particular website. Let's save, close, and we have just created the content. You'll notice that this is using the traditional Drupal tabs. Mercury is taking over the links to these tabs. So if I click edit, we still get this edit in place, edit tray that slides out, still turns on layout paragraphs on the left. If I want to turn on add that drop edit button that we were looking at before, I can certainly do that. Let's see here. We'll add it in here. This is just provided as a block. We're going to only show this on content types using the edit tray. Hit save. And I'm actually going to make 2 quick changes before we take a look at how that worked. I'm not going to display the title. And I'm going to change primary tabs. So the primary tabs, I'm going to select to only show these on content types using the edit tray, but then negate the condition, which means basically don't show this on content types that are using Mercury. Hit save. Go back to my new page. Oh, and I missed this. Oh, here it is. So obviously that's been added to the wrong region. I've never seen the edit tab sideways like that. That's interesting. But clicking on that should give us the same result. Just added that to the wrong region under structure. So if that was added into the content area, wherever you wanted that, you can place that block wherever you want. I'm just going to fix that really quick. I see. Let's put that there. So I'd accidentally dragged that into the wrong region of the site. Go back to content, go to my new page. And now we see that this is now in the breadcrumb region. So directly across from the breadcrumbs, we have the drop button. We can click edit, load the editor, and we're off and running. All right. That again is now a brief look at how this works on a fresh Drupal install with very few other modules turned on. I'm going to take a look now at the modules page and just talk through the various modules available in Mercury. So there's quite a few, 10 or 11, I think. And the way we have been building this is each specific piece of functionality has been relegated to its own submodule. And that's allowing us to do a couple things. It's allowing us to really thoroughly test and experiment with functionality in a way that doesn't conflict with the main module and keep pushing that to submodules. But it's also allowing us to develop a tool or a set of tools where individuals may choose which features they want and turn them on separately. Some folks might want to provide their own layouts, for example, and have the layouts module turned off. For folks who don't need the integration with style options, they can turn that piece off. All of these are configurable and can be selected independently. I'll just talk briefly through what each of these does. The main Mercury editor module, of course, just provides some baseline functionality and some adjustments to layout paragraphs. It improves a little bit, I think, the drag and drop hints for layout paragraphs. So it adds these blue bars that indicate where you're dragging an item, but doesn't drag. The way layout paragraphs works by default, you would get a shadow element that snaps into where you're trying to drag it to, and it can be a little bit jarring. So this blue bar is a little easier to work with. The Mercury Editor Components module installs the base Mercury Editor components. So that has been installed on this website. When I click the plus button, this list comes directly out of that components module. You can use your own components. Certainly, you can build your own components. Each of these are just paragraph types. Mercury just ships with a module that turns on a number of paragraph types. First and foremost, to provide an example right out of the box. Although we are really working to try to standardize this list to the fewest number of components that we need across every website that we're building. Mercury Editor Content Moderation provides some integration with the content moderation module. Not too worth getting into at this point. Mercury Editor Dialog is what provides this custom dialog interface. So this is not using Drupal's core dialog. This is using a custom dialog called Mercury Dialog. It's available as an NPM module. It allows us to really tightly control the styles for these dialogues and provides an API, just a slightly different API than Drupal's core API for dialogues. The edit tray module is, of course, what supports this edit tray functionality. So because I had made edits, it's warning me and asking me if I really want to close, but that's fine. So if I hit edit, this edit tray, which slides out from the right, is coming from the edit tray module. Iframes, super important for the way Mercury is working now and supporting, again, this really fast to deploy look and feel for all of the edit forms within the dialogues. So all of these dialogues are actually loading the content inside of an iframe. And the benefit of that is it's not injecting any of the styles from the front end theme. It's only injecting styles from the back end theme. So if you've worked with layout paragraphs in the past and wondered, how could you get the back end form editing styles showing in the front end, this is really the best way at this point to do it, or to use this module as a basis to develop your own. The inline editor, again, this is turned off because it's not working so well with CK Editor 5 quite yet, but that's the piece that allows front-end text editing, as we saw over here. Again, where we can just click into a piece of content and immediately start editing. Mercury Editor Layouts ships 1, 2, 3, and 4 column layouts that are used. So these layouts provide integration by default with style options, which is something that you don't get with Drupal core layouts if you just use those. And I'm happy to talk more about style options if folks have questions about that or want to dive in a little bit deeper with how that works. Mercury Editor Scaffold simply installs everything that we're looking at. So if you run that module, it's not required at all, but if you run that module, it basically sets up a demo much like what we're looking at right now. Style Options provides integration with Style Options. Style Options also provides a really interesting style option plugin that I'd be happy to talk more about that it gives the ability to create variations of paragraph types. So if you wanted something that had the same fields as a card, but used a separate template, and even perhaps a subset of fields available in cards, you can do that with one of the style option plugins that's provided by Mercury Editor Style Options. And then finally, Mercury Editor Tabs, super simple, super lightweight, just provides tabs for the content versus styles editing. And that module will be eventually will get wrapped back into the main Mercury editor module. Again, we wanted to be able to experiment with some of this functionality in a way that doesn't disrupt what's happening in the main module. So that's a quick look at all of the modules that are available, or all the modules that come with Mercury editor. These all exist just as submodules. By submodules, I mean modules within the repository on Drupal.org, just in the modules folder, not to be confused with Git submodules, which means something else entirely. And I think that's about it. I will take a look just really quickly at the settings page. There are a number of settings for Mercury editor. One, there's the ability with this edit tray settings to specify which content types should use Mercury editor, and also to say whether or not content should always redirect when the tray closes. Content should always redirect, or the site should always be redirected back to the node view tab. And I can talk more about that. That's again a little more technical, a little more in the weeds. Iframe settings, the big thing here is for all iframed content, all content that's using iframes in Mercury, you can specify which theme you would like to use. So any theme that's installed in your site will show up here. We almost always use Claro, which is a little bit simpler than Gin. It doesn't have all the overrides that Gin has. And then we have some styles built on top of Claro that provide the look and feel that we're all kind of looking at today. Eventually, there will be a custom Mercury theme, probably built on top of Claro, that will ship with Mercury as well. Again, with the goal being just to really customize the look of what shows up in this edit tray and really simplify the editing experience so that it works well in this sort of slide out tray. All right, that's all I have as far as demo. Just going back to the deck here. We've talked about the submodules. You can see those if you grab the code. Again, those are all inside of the modules folder inside the main Mercury editor repo. I want to talk a little bit about what's next and what we're working on in 2023. So first, we want to finish inline editing, CK Editor 5 compatibility, so make that work for CK Editor 5. And I should say also just address some bugs that we've noticed with inline editing at large. There's some weird stuff happening with the drag and drop interface when you click into text and start editing. We want to address that. We're going to expand inline editing to other fields. This is something I'm really excited about with the way Mercury is working. There's nothing stopping us from making any text element on this page editable the same way that, I should use this as an example, but any text element on the page editable, not just layout paragraphs text field. So right now, this is just text that's inside layout paragraphs. We're going to expand that. So if you were to use this edit tray for, say, a blog post or something like that, you could very easily edit the text, again, just with this kind of point and click inline editing capability. We want to expand the Mercury component library. So again, that's largely that exists largely as an example and to provide some default content when spinning up Mercury. We want to continue to build on that, build that component library. That will continue to be customized to the needs of each site. But I think we can get to a place where we have a default component library that works for the vast majority of use cases. We're going to build support for more complex components with templates. This is something that we've already been doing for clients, are excited to roll into the contrib version of Mercury editor. We want to build in the ability to create templates for more complex groups of components. You could imagine like a section with some nested components inside the section, wanting to templatize that and make that available to all of your editors. That's something that's coming. Mercury needs automated testing. That's something that we're working on and getting that up on Drupal.org, using the Drupal.org automated testing infrastructure. And then finally, we'll be working on documentation and improving the Drupal.org project page. Right now, this really is sort of a public repo for something we're working on for a lot of our clients, something that we're driving forward as a matter of, or as a function of working on client projects. And we want to do what we can to improve the documentation and improve what's available publicly for folks.